you want to grow to be one of the Apples or the Starbucks or the McDonald's or Nikes of the world, brand is incredibly important. You will not do it through just being a commodity. And that's essentially what branding does, is that it takes the perception of the product from being a product and a commodity, in which case you're always going to be fighting for convenience, you're going to be fighting for cost, you're going to be fighting for quality. And the brand actually does some of that heavy lifting for you. So that, let's say, for example, you're starting off with a product. You're away suitcases and you're starting out with one suitcase that has a battery inside of it. That's a really fantastic offering. There weren't a lot of other competitors at their time, probably two others that were doing something similar. And that's the other reason why brand is important, because what will happen if you do not have a brand is people are only going to evaluate you on that product, even though you may have a lot of other superior characteristics. Let's say, for example, that your customer service is superior. No one's going to know that until they deal with your particular company, but they also have to deal with your company in order to discover that. What branding does is it puts a face and a personality to the product that you're selling. Nike, you could argue, has incredible innovation, incredible creative. There's a lot of things that Nike does really, really well. It's prestige too. It shows it's a mark of something desirable, especially if you think of the Air Jordan brand, for example. However, when you look at that shoe next to Adidas, next to Puma, next to Reebok, next to New Balance, and you strip away all of that, you're only looking at the actual product. And that gets a lot more competitive if people don't have anything else to glom onto. Today's audiences are really looking for a connection with the companies and brands that they buy and that they support. It's become more and more important that, especially with younger generations, we see it already with millennials, but even more so with Gen Z, they really want to be supporting products and companies that they believe in, which means you have to have a truer understanding of who that company is, which means if you do not have a brand and someone else does, the likelihood of you being chosen over this established brand is going to be pretty slim. Brand strategy is something that is really important and often gets overlooked because it's not consumer facing. It's one of those invisible pieces that can make your company, your brand, successful or confusing. It's much easier to grow when you have a comprehensive brand strategy because you're essentially doing future planning as well. As a founder, as someone starting out, I can tell you right now, like, your time is going to be so limited. You are going to be putting out all different kinds of fires. And it is very hard to think for a second, like, I'm going to take a minute, I'm going to spend 2 weeks and figure out what my brand strategy is when there are so many other things calling for your attention. However, if you are successful and if you grow, if you do not pay attention to that, your brand will become fragmented very, very quickly. And scaling can be the death of any successful business if it's not done correctly. So setting the brand strategy allows for that foundation. And it becomes the central truth so that everybody who touches the brand or works with the brand or buys the brand all has the same impression of the brand. So it's a playbook for working internally, making sure anybody that you're hiring that comes on or that you're working with as a vendor fully understands the behavior of the brand, the positioning that it's taken, the things that are important, the audience, those types of things. It also works in terms of just when you're working with an agency like us, and say it's an advertising agency and you need a piece of advertising created for your business. I now have an understanding of what your business is based on your brand strategy. Your brand strategy, essentially, in its truest form, is outlining your how, your what, and your why. And this is directly lifted from Simon Sinek. What is it that you make? That's the product piece. How do you make it? There could be a patent associated with that. There could be a very special way that you handle customer service. There could be a very special way you handle fulfillment. There could be a subscription model nobody's ever seen before. But the most differentiating point is generally the why. Why you? Why did you do this? Why should I trust you? Why are you providing the best answer for this problem? If you think of it from a sense of monopolies versus interlopers, if we think of, say, a FedEx or a UPS, they grew to a point where there was no competition to speak of. But then suddenly you have things like Amazon Prime, and there's different shipping companies that have come in and started to take bites. The same is true of 1-800-Flowers. used to be the only game in town. FTD florist, locally 1-800-Flowers if you wanted to order flowers. Then suddenly there's Bloom This and Farm Girl Flowers and all these different options that feel more intimate, that feel more specialized, that don't feel so much like a commodity. In which case, they start to gobble up some of the audience that these bigger players have had. So knowing the importance of your brand and why is FedEx different than UPS, different than Amazon Prime, or why is 1-800-Flowers different from Farm Girl Flowers or Bloom That, is understanding where you can where you can start to be competitive in an existing category. If people can relate to your product on an emotional and personal level, they will always be more likely to go to you than they will an unknown entity. There's just a level of security and trust that happens with good branding. People know what they're getting themselves into, and they know what the brand stands for, and they're not worried that it's going to suddenly turn into something else. If you think about competing on even a local level, let's say you're a lawyer, what separates you from the other lawyers in that vicinity? Maybe you're an accident lawyer. What is it that's different between the way that you do accident law and the way that someone else does it? It could be a litany of things, and you can talk about all those things on a website, in advertising, in any of your branded materials. But you also want to think about, when people are using your service, what is the need state? Let's look at the accident lawyer, for example. The need state is, I've been in an accident. I am confused, I am in pain, I don't know where to start, I just know that I need someone. Think about the way that you shop. If I'm out and I'm Googling, which is what everybody is going to be doing, right? Chances are you're doing some kind of a search, and you're looking for different lawyers. The thing that's going to pop for you is going to be what it looks like and how they sound, in addition to testimonials and those sorts of things. But think about how different an accident lawyer can look like outside of the stereotype of what we're used to seeing, which is the big number, the picture of the person, maybe it's like handcuffs or DIY, like all these tropes. And they all blend together. There's no point of differentiation. And if you thought of being an accident lawyer, and instead of going in that direction, you went in a very different direction. Instead of coming from a place of fear and pain, you're coming from a place of like, I'm going to help you. You have security here. We are going to win on your behalf. And it takes a much more toned down version. There are ways that you can stand out, but in order for that brand to be successful, that also has to be the accident lawyer that you are. You have to be representative of that. Our job as a branding company isn't to put a mask on you for the rest of the world. It's really to extract as successfully as we can, why are you the choice that people should be making when they're in the market for whatever solution it is you're providing.